newspapers in Europe like, oh, it's a leftist government and everything, but there is like this remnant still of the dictatorship.
And if you think about it, some of our heroic explorers, in a critical perspective, they were war criminals.
Raison pour l'assassiner.
Non, mais bon.
Ils l'ont assassiné et du coup ils ont assassiné son fils comme ça. Et la République a été
Proclamée. Donc en 1926.
En octobre 1910.
Quando começou a República, que foi em 5 de outubro de 1910. Aquele busto é o busto da República. Portanto, é, digamos que a casa da cidade.
Wait, Republic was founded here?
Yes.
On this balcony?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, for me Portugal only existed as this little drawing on the bottom left corner of our European maps in my old German school books. Far away from everything I knew, and yet still fitting on the same little map, right before the seemingly endless ocean. And as I got older, my curiosity led me to explore the corners of my known world. And well, this is me trying to go through stages and stages of Portuguese history in order to understand. This is me having a conversation with many interesting people and learning a lot about myself and the country I visited. This is Portugal, or Novo, Estado.
Não sobra Pedro sobre Medro, tropeçando nas peças do tropo embriagado do teu quebra-cabeça. Porque eu não sei ser frio e nem penso que ser réptil é sinal de brio. É nesse medo que eu me medro, destrinchando a espessa equação do poliedro que teu cheiro me atiça. Porque eu não sei ser vil, o meu peito é uma cadela no cio.
I'm doing my Erasmus in Greenbelt. That's right. In the country that my grandmother lived when she was young. So I'm not Portuguese, but I have definitely some roots. My family come from Alentejo. Like my grandparents was originally my grandparents were baker in their village, and Portuguese are since a long time people that has history from mobility. Like even if we talk about history. Video.
Yeah.
They were traveler. They went all around the world, but it's also a country that was like that was not a Christian one and was like for the Reconquista and became a kingdom. So it's an area where the people move a lot. Basically, it was like the Pope made a call for every country
Holy War,
to help.
crusade.
A bit of crusade, but it was called Reconquista.
Okay.
Because it was like we have to take back. It's not like we have to
take it.
Yeah.
But we have to take back.
You take back because it was.
Was it?
No. And so a lot of like knight from
whatever order from like England,
Germany,
France.
France. Every night we wanted to find glory, money and titles.
This could be one of the reasons why Portugal had the sea expansion, because there was a high demand from nobility
basically
treasure.
There was like too much nobility for a small kingdom, and that's one of the reasons. There is obviously like more reasons, we can't just say like it's because of that. It's like too many things.
Yeah.
It's really complex.
We study a lot of history, but they only teach you the beautiful parts. So they say, we Portuguese, we Portuguese, we were very brave because we just decided to discover new horizons, and we took the ships and boats, and we were poor, so we decided to go to other places now to live better. But they never explain you violations, the rapes that they used to do when they arrive in new countries, in Brazil and everything, all the exploitation. They never talk about that. I never heard this in my school.
Back to the question, yes, we're told a lot about our history, but the main emphasis is on discoveries.
I think it's true, we were brave, and it's good to explore new horizons and everything, but I think they should teach us a more realistic picture and tell us about the good and the bad that we have done. Not only about the good, but then they can talk about the bad things that the other countries did. For example, with the Nazism and everything.
But it's a very interesting perspective. I think it's valuable, and we're not given that one. We're not given the perspective of the colonialist who makes lives miserable of the locals, or what happened back 500 years ago when we first arrived in Brazil, or what happened when we just got your foot on in India.
And honestly, personally, I don't believe in disruptive events. There was a revolution, okay, and then it's okay. So only I think it was 2 weeks ago we made 50 years of democracy. So until then, we had more days, more time of dictatorship than democracy.
Não discutimos Deus e a virtude. Não discutimos a pátria e a sua história. Não discutimos a autoridade e o seu prestígio. Não discutimos a família e a sua moral. Não discutimos a glória do trabalho e o seu dever.
Et la République a été
proclamée. Donc en 1926.
En octobre 1910.
D'accord, ok.
Et à partir de là, par un processus, petit à petit, c'est devenu un pays démocratique, comme à l'époque.
Comme beaucoup de pays européens.
De l'époque.
Oui.
C'est pas la démocratie d'aujourd'hui.
Non.
Et puis...
Mais c'était les débuts de la démocratie européenne.
Neste mundo, há dignidade numa sociedade fechada e socialmente estratificada. Em 1910, está inscrito no curso de Direito da Universidade de Coimbra, no início da República.
Coimbra é uma lição de sonho e tradição.
Não sobra Pedro sobre Medro, tropeçando nas peças do tropo embriagado do teu quebra-cabeça. Porque eu não sei ser frio e nem penso que ser réptil é sinal de brio. É nesse medo que eu me medro, destrinchando a espessa equação do poliedro que teu cheiro me atiça. Porque eu não sei ser vil, o meu peito é uma cadela no cio. O meu destino é ser entrado vivo num sacrário de pé, me transformar num lírio adornando uma mulher, num relicário antigo, num aceno de até. Não sobra sobre sobra, sombra que a gente meça pra poder saber da altura da queda que arremessa. O teu olhar tão frio, eu não penso que ser réptil é sinal de brilho.
Já não durmo mais do que 5 horas há 3 dias, puto.
Mas tem uma cadeira aqui.
Tira essa. Queres sentar? You wanna sit?
So we are in the only school radio in Portugal.
The only school radio?
Yeah, the only school radio. Rádio Universidade de Coimbra. This is a student-made and built by radio.
You're from Coimbra?
I am from Coimbra, yes.
The academic city of Portugal. Like, what is Coimbra in your eyes?
Coimbra is like, it's inseparable from that image that everyone has, that our main export are people and students. Like our image is really based on academia, and like that image is confirmed. Everything is about studying here.
Yeah.
Of course, with that comes a lot of our identity, and like any identity, there are some problems associated with it. For example, you can say that if we're standing on a point where our image is that and our academia is great, there's really no point in evolving it, because what draws people to come here is this ancient way of teaching, this ancient way of functioning.
How do you think the city of Coimbra itself, or the culture around it, deals with its past? Like with the Salazarian regime, for example? Because I think he also he started his career basically in Coimbra, no?
Yeah. He was a law student. The myth says that he had the highest grades in law school, basically.
Yeah, you told me a little bit about this weird thing that, was it in law? In law, you're not supposed to look people in the eye? Or the professors?
I wouldn't know, like, most students here in Coimbra are from law, and they say that this is a tradition that, like, if a doctor, it's what we call, once you're above the first year, you're not a caloiro, is what we say. Freshman, exactly. You're a doctor. And if you're a doctor, you have higher status. And if you're a freshman and you come here, in some places, mainly in law school here in the University of Coimbra, you can look them in the eyes, like, like you have to get on all fours. You hear insults being thrown around, mainly by the doctors. It's unfathomable to think that a freshman would actually take some kind of response towards your doctor, because like decades ago, actually disobeying this tradition had real consequences. Like if you were caught in the middle of the night, like past 12 a.m., they were allowed to shave your head. They were allowed to
shave your head?
Yes, they were allowed.
Doctors, all the students?
Like students that were like 1 year older than you. Basically, it's just some guy.
They're not doctors.
They just got in university 1 year earlier than you, and they were allowed to shave your head. They were allowed to strike your fingernails with a wooden spoon.
Yeah.
This is crazy, actually. As a student here in Portugal, this was like this contrast thing, because in Brazil we talk with the teachers like one-to-one, you know, like we have the respect, but we are talking, we have questions, we're gonna question them, like we have this connection with the teachers. And here in Portugal, like the teacher is a god and you are nothing, like you are the I don't know, nothing. Like you're a fly.
You're teaching people that come from outside of Coimbra, outside of Portugal. This is what we do. This will always be like this. It's cyclical. If you go through us, you have to do it like us. The tradition we have is just to resemble what kind of behavior you have to have in military, like in the Salazar regime. there was a big part. You had to have people ready to go to war and to fight for your country. So the tradition in people that actually graduated at some kind of education here in Coimbra was forcibly to conform to those standards, like to learn how to be in military without being in military when you're trying to improve your knowledge.
Le pays allait assez mal. Le pays allait assez mal. C'est pas tout à fait le même phénomène de Hitler et l'Allemagne, mais ça ressemble un petit peu.
Oui, la crise économique, quoi.
Et, voilà. Et Salazar est arrivé, c'était n'est qu'un très grand économiste.
D'accord.
Avec une supervision, d'une intelligence extraordinaire. Ce qui est à lui est à lui. Et il arrive en 1926 au pouvoir et il fait des miracles pour le Portugal. Petit à petit, il s'est entouré de gens de droite. Déjà pour commencer, le premier président de la République qui a été élu pendant quand il est arrivé au pouvoir était un homme de droite, d'extrême droite. Et petit à petit, boucler le pays.
Et du coup, il avait une politique qui était comment par rapport au peuple?
D'abord, il était une politique qui était une politique.
C'était capitaliste?
Bien sûr, et surtout, il a alimenté la guerre, les deux guerres coloniales où il pas dire que ce soit lui tout seul, mais, bon,
oui, mais...
où la jeunesse portugaise a été complètement partie
à
la guerre.
Viemos aqui fazer é que eu me pergunto. Ora é essa, meu Ferreira? Viemos defender as colónias? Ou melhor, províncias ultramarinas? Não é assim, meu Ferreira? O soldado está sempre errado nas guerras, pá. Nunca está por causa própria. É a lei que o põe lá.
Olha, meu Ferreira, estou a pensar que muitos fugiram à lei e deram o piro para o estrangeiro.
Os cobardes é o que eles são.
Cobardes não. Fugiram por razões ideológicas.
Ideológicas? Meu Ferreira, por cobardia! Fugiram para não dar o corpinho ao manifesto, essa que é essa! Talvez que alguns tivessem fingido motivos ideológicos. Mas a maioria, estou convencido, que foi por convicção política. Contra o Salazar e contra a guerra. E escaparam-se para o estrangeiro. Viraram-se. Foi o que foi.
E fizeram eles muito bem.
Pois é, e nós aqui inocentes é que nos lixamos.
Inocentes e forçados.
Et tout ça parce que les grandes fortunes, l'Angola et le Mozambique, et notamment l'Angola, encore aujourd'hui, c'est un pays très très riche. Ils avaient tout. Ils avaient les diamants, l'or, le cacao, tout. Canne à sucre, le blé, le machin, ils avaient tout. Donc, mais tout ça, c'était dans des mains des grands capitalistes portugais qui vivaient au Portugal et qui avaient donc des esclaves là-bas.
The typical architecture from the fascist regime.
A stand up to fascism and authoritarianism, which no matter who does it, I'm always for that. I think it's very important that we keep our governments in check to avoid fascism to come into power.
For example, my grandfather was in prison 3 times because you have no freedom to talk about politics, but you never know if your friend was working for the state, for the government. A dangerous topic to talk about. So I think in Portugal it's a little bit taboo. Like, I don't know who is pro the dictatorship, because you are always afraid that someone can get mad with it. I think most of Portuguese are against the dictatorship because most of the population was very poor during these times. So usually people who are pro-dictatorship because they were living well, they come from a family with a lot of money.
If you were more than 3 persons together, it was considered a meeting, so you had to have authorization for a meeting. It was complicated until 74. So the way of turn a little bit that crazy law was we meet in a cinema. We're going to show, imagine a Chaplin movie, amazing Chaplin, a Buster Keaton. It could be a Bergman or a Portuguese film. But before and after, you somehow could talk about what the subject of the film, the story of the film, and what was happening. So it had somehow educational proposal. One thing that we were fighting, and I think it's real a fight that still is going on, it's in education.
E António Oliveira Salazar foi o favorito dos telespectadores da RTP. Vou naturalmente dar...
A apologia ao fascismo é proibida pela Constituição.
Vou naturalmente dar
é proibida pela Constituição.
Odete Santos já lhe darei a palavra.
There was a vote sponsored by our public television in order to elect the personality that influenced more the history of Portugal. So I think the second one was our Dom Afonso Henriques, the founding king of our country. But the first one is actually voted by all the people, you know. Was Salazar. So that's I'm not saying people want dictatorship again. I'm not saying people want to revive to some kind of revival about our colonial past. I hope not, but there are some kind of saudosism. I think some kind of
nostalgia.
Nostalgia, yes. About those days. It's very common to hear older people saying, hey, back in the days it was way better.
Quand il y a eu la fin du régime Salazar, en fait ça a été les prémices de la démocratie. Donc le Portugal ne connaît la démocratie que depuis un demi-siècle. Et du coup, comment est-ce qu'aujourd'hui c'est perçu la République, la démocratie au Portugal ?
Non, mais toute cette génération qui a connu
Salazar,
ça se perd, ça se perd. Les jeunes, moi j'en ai discuté là puisque j'ai été très longtemps à Lisbonne même, j'ai pas mal discuté notamment avec une de mes copines qui travaille à la mairie de Lisbonne. Ben, les jeunes, ça les concerne plus. Le reste de l'histoire, c'est que donc pourquoi le Portugal pourquoi cette révolution de 1974,
la fameuse révolution des œillets.
Oui, c'est très, comment dirais-je, c'est très romantique, mais c'est plus loin que ça. Pourquoi elle s'est passée justement comme ça? Alors, donc les militaires qui sont venus se sont dit non, ça ne peut pas continuer, on ne va pas continuer à tuer des gens, à entretenir d'un côté les Russes et de l'autre côté les Américains. Ce n'est pas notre guerre.
And I mean, I'm not that old. I'm just turned 29. When I was born, so 29 years ago, and throughout my youth days, I remember that back in my village, small village in Portugal, it used to be like 20, 30 people of my generation. Of that generation, I mean, I'd say 2 people. 1 person is there maybe, still there, like working and all that. Like 1. All the rest, they go to either France, Switzerland, Germany. In my case, it was different. It was the Netherlands and Spain, but they just no way you can live there on 600, 700 euro paycheck.
Wir sind immer die Ausländer in unserem eigenen Land, weil man merkt an unserer Aussprache, dass wir halt nicht die Portugiesen sind, die da wohnen. Natürlich können wir sehr gut Portugiesisch sprechen, aber nicht so perfekt wie die. Es ist genauso wie die Franzosen. Die Franzosen haben immer einen französischen Dialekt. Das ist halt dieses Multikulti. Wir sind in die Kirche gegangen, jeden Samstag in Harburg. Religionsunterricht um 15 Uhr, 16 Uhr, danach um 18 Uhr in die Kirche und danach sind wir ins Portugal 82 gegangen und haben dann halt noch so eine Jugendtreff gehabt, so mit den Messdienern sind alle hin.
Kennt man sich noch in Hamburg?
In Hamburg, ja, also es ist so, ich bin ja die alte Generation, hier Philippa zum Beispiel, das ist die jüngere Generation. Das ist so anders, also ich kenne die jüngere Generation nicht, ich kenne nur die 80er-Leute. Meine Oma natürlich ist hergekommen mit 18. Sie hatte meinen Papa bekommen und hat ihn auch da gelassen bei ihren Großeltern und ist dann hierher gekommen nach Deutschland, um halt Geld zu verdienen, weil es dort drüben ja nicht so viel Geld zu verdienen gibt, was auch nicht so wirklich geändert ist. Also das ist immer noch so, dass du da halt einer, der von Montag bis Samstag arbeitet, wirklich einen Hungerlohn von 700 € hat und die Lebensmittel in Portugal und die ganzen Drogeriegeschichten, wie zum Beispiel Kinderschokolade und alles drum und dran, das ist alles viel, viel teurer. Das heißt, wenn die Portugiesen hier einmal uns besuchen kommen, die rasten auf bei DM, bei Budni, weil die denken, wow, wie günstig ist das? Und das ist alles Hälfte vom Preis. Wir überlegen uns, die Migranten, die hier in Deutschland sind, wie kann man in Portugal überleben mit so wenig Gehalt. So, und deswegen trauen wir uns gar nicht. Unser Wunsch jedes Portugiesen ist es, nach Portugal wieder auszuwandern. Deswegen arbeiten wir hier und bauen uns dann drüben was auf, indem wir ein Haus kaufen, ein Apartment oder von den Eltern halt alles geerbt bekommen. Wenn man nicht so viele Geschwister hat, hat man dann halt mehr Glück.
Portugal, among all the European countries, has one of the highest withdrawal rates when it comes to voting. Basically, young people don't vote at all in this country. Do you have any idea why? We talked a little bit about the laissez-faire culture, a little bit about this Don Sebastian, this we wait things out. But you come from a very young city. You guys seem a bit political. Do you understand why people don't want to vote?
Yeah, I can understand various reasons for people not to vote, and some of them I can understand as valid. It's just an interesting for most of people, because we grew up always seeing our elders, our parents just telling stuff like, oh no, all the government is corrupt, which is true, but that belief leads you to not caring about it because it's a older people thing.
Are you guys hopeful for the future?
In Portugal?
Yeah. It's a hard question, yeah. But
Not really. Like if you maybe in Portugal with a no Portuguese company and with a no Portuguese salary, yes, I could be, because I will enjoy the sun, the Portuguese food. With the Portuguese salary, it's a little bit difficult to be hopeful about your future, about buying a house or having a family.
I don't think the future will be dark, so to say, because I mean, look at our country. You've got nice infrastructure, nice social service, healthcare everywhere. You got tourism, you got everything to make life pleasant in this country. But it's being highlighted here, like the economical incentives for people to develop, to produce more there, to stay around and to produce new, better things, better products, better services, better politicians. That is not there.
Even when you have like degrees here, it doesn't always translates into like jobs or good jobs. So you will always find a lot of people getting better pay outside, out of Portugal, you know what I mean? So that's why a lot of young people leave the country, because they study here but they don't get like the reward they wish.
Outside,
700.
You live outside the city?
I mean outside the city and I pay 500.
Oh.
So here, where we are now.
And the rents are still going up and up?
It's insane. I mean, I can show you online. It's really insane.
Hard to find a job. It's hard to find a well-paying job. It's common to pay to work for free, basically, in certain areas. I'm a graphic designer. You are expected to work for free for a long time. Sad because I have nothing against Portugal and nothing against Lisbon, which I would like to live and work. But then my friends working and living here, yeah, I mean, they are not fairly compensated. Which is, I mean, it's a lot about compensation, but just like in general, expecting a lot from people to work overtime, and then to not get a lot of money. Then the rents here are very expensive. That's a whole other discussion.
I live here for 10 years, and they say it's a completely different country nowadays. But I mean, for good and for bad, right? Everything has good and bad sides. But yeah. I think the worst is like housing situation for Portuguese people. It's very complicated because salaries are still very low, and foreigners are pretty much like taking over.
Eu nasci em Angola. I was born in Angola. Eu fugi, não é? Como a Ucrânia, também fugi para aqui. Mas os meus pais nasceram cá. E, portanto, mudou, passou a haver liberdade. Nós podemos dizer o que sentimos, criticar, portanto, dizer o que está mal. E mudou bastantes coisas, portanto.
It's something that you really should remember every year because people forget easily. Like I come from Brazil in a moment that we have a president that people are actually like asking for the dictatorship again and like asking for military intervention, which is like we just got out like in '64. It's not that long ago.
Young people are, I mean, it's a good thing to see so many people on the streets on a day like today.
Maybe I'm biased because I live in a fairly progressive region, but we're more open-minded and open to new ideas, new concepts. Yeah.
Are you hopeful for the future?
Not really. In terms of like climate change and stuff, like I think we're in a pretty bad spot right now, and it will only get worse as things are now.
Everyone learns this in high school. Before high school, you learn this in
even in primary school.
Dom Sebastião was our king. And basically, we had this war in Alcácer Quibir, but he was still young. He was like not even a teenager, so he got lost in the war. It was a foggy night, that's what people say, and he got lost in the middle of the fog. No one knows if he was captured, no one knows if he was instantly killed, no one knows what happened to Dom Sebastião. But these 3 years, we waste our time lamenting his disappearance and just keep on waiting for him to return. Like, it's a symbolism of what's good to come, but never actually arrives. So we just sit and wait. And we can say that's a lot what is happening. We just wait and then we conform to it and say, oh, that's bullshit.
It's been now more than a year after I visited and started researching Portugal and its history. And while I learned a lot, I now have even more questions than ever before. Well, what I do know is that each history is a story that lies within a narrative. A story subject to change. And while stories like the discoveries, the republic, the dictatorship or the revolution are here to stay, in the end it's not about them, but what the youth does out of them. I encountered many interesting young people on my voyage, and while I still don't know a lot, I do know that what's about to come lies within their fate. And I personally am very excited to see what will happen.
If I compare to myself, to my parents or my grandparents, yes, obviously Portugal is way more developed, but still on the tail of Europe in comparing to good wages and unemployment rates, political participation.
People live in poverty. My grandpas, my great-grandpas, they're forced to go to the war and all that. A lot of lives lost in Africa, in our ex-colonies.
I respect the work of the persons, but I didn't want to participate in a thing kind of come to Lisbon, it's great, buy the tickets and so on.
No.